All right, live on two platforms. So I'm trying this out on YouTube, and then we're always live on Instagram. Once again, I just want to talk about how we are brought to you today by the Bear Post. Bear Post is a huge mobility tool that we use at our facility. And so if you haven't heard of the Bear Post, if you don't even know what the Bear Post is, I highly, highly recommend going to their website, checking them out. It's a rack attached tool. So if you have a rack, get to use it. Um, and just get after it. We use it in all of our athletes mobility tools. And so this is a live Q&A. If you have a question, please feel free to ask it. If you do not have a question, that is okay. But we're going to go here with it. Now, I have a list of questions. I got several questions throughout the week on our social medias. We did a Q&A. And so we're going to go through and answer some of these questions and hopefully give you guys some good advice. Once again, we're live on YouTube. So we either have questions coming from YouTube or Instagram, or this list of 9 questions that we were asked whenever we did it on Instagram. So the first question, which is a really good one in my opinion, is what is better for sports, Bulgarian or front squats? And so a lot of people do squats. They're training their lower body a lot. I know that Bulgarian squats are becoming popular because they're such almost a torturous device where people are just punishing themselves to do Bulgarian squats. And the idea is if it burns, it works. It's the old mouthwash analogy. If the mouthwash is going to hurt, then it's going to work. I, however, believe that like all lifting modalities are tools. And so whatever implement you're going to use it well and use it appropriately. And so the question was, what's better? Is a Bulgarian squat better or is a front squat better? I would say both in the right context. A Bulgarian squat is a great unilateral development tool. So I'm training one limb at a time. Got one leg in front doing most of the load, one leg on the back doing some of the balance. And so the challenge is, can I recruit more stability style movements into this? And so I would say for somebody that is unilaterally deficit, Bulgarian squats is a better tool. However, for most athletes, just getting general force development is the way to go. And so a front squat might be where you want to start. And so front squat is a great way to just get anterior load. It's heavy, it's challenging, pushing yourself through that movement pattern. Um, Now, to come back to it, what I would do is if I have an athlete that has a great bilateral strength, and so let's say their back squat, their front squat is on parts high compared to their peers, and then their split strength, and so their lunge, their Bulgarian, everything is below their peers. Obviously, Bulgarian squat has more value. It's going to have more punishment. They're going to feel more sore. They're going to get a lot more feel from it, but they need that more. That's their deficit. That's their weak spot. And so I would challenge them to do more Bulgarian squats, or they'd have more volume or more focus on that. On the flip side, if you have somebody that is bilaterally weak, and so that's what's typically happening to your younger athletes. Young athletes come in and they have greater split stance than they do gathered bilateral stance. You're going to do more bilateral based training. You're going to see more return on investment from that. And so as an athlete, you have to figure out, are they unilaterally or bilaterally dominant? What area do we want to work on at this moment? So are we working on weaknesses? Are we strengthening strengths? And then you can train and develop them around that to build a better athlete. And so that's why regularly testing, regularly evaluating, regularly addressing these issues is pretty important. My next question is about our internship opportunities. So a lot of people don't know this, but we uh, only get our coaching and team members through internship. So we have a university pretty close by, Midwestern State University. And at that university, they have to have an internship to graduate. They have to get an intern credit. And so we provide an opportunity for them to come in to do an internship so that they can graduate. On the flip side, we're also looking to hire from those people, right? So if we get a good candidate, they do a good job, we're going to add them to our team. They're going to be a part of our payroll at some point. So not only are we getting somebody who's going to be more qualified because they've done the dirty work with us, they've gone through an internship, um, but we're also going to uh, give reward back to that university so that their students are getting jobs out of college. They're getting jobs while in college, still working on their degrees. The field of exercise physiology and sports science is a hard one. If you want to work with athletes, you have to go the college route. You have to grind as a college coach. And a lot of times that means not getting paid, getting underpaid, getting paid enough, but then working twice as much as your peers. And so, us being in the private sector, we had to have a better life work balance. But being in a smaller county in a smaller town, we do have limited opportunity. And so that's a pretty tough one for most people is is finding the next step. We want to be the next step for a lot of people, and our internship is a gateway to get good employees, A pluses, but still giving them college credits because they're going to come here and get a 3-hour college credit doing our internship, and then they might get a paycheck the second they're done, which is I think a win-win for everyone. A lot of internships, you find that you fold towels for 3 months, you get no education, no basing, you just get to put on your resume that you folded towels at so and so, whatever this place is. All right. Now I'm also in the middle of programming, and so my pauses are just me taking a moment to wrap up something that I was programming on and going from there. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them. Like I said, I got 9 questions, so that, I'm going to try and answer a question every like 3 to 4 minutes, and then move on from that one. My third question is, for contact sports like wrestling or MMA, what is more important, hypertrophy or endurance? This goes back to like the unilateral and bilateral deficit I talked about earlier. It just depends on the gap in that competitive athlete's portfolio. And so a gap in my portfolio, when I was wrestling in high school, I was a very strong and aggressive wrestler. Not that I was a good wrestler. It's just like if I was winning, it was out of like aggressive and strength. It wasn't out of winning from technicality. And no matter how big my engine was, no matter how much conditioning we did in practice, like I was going all out, and your anaerobic energy system only lasts like 2 minutes. And so when I was at the 2-minute mark, I was basically gassed. I just wrestled really hard. I competed really hard. And so even if I went through endurance training, maybe that deficit goes up, I'm still going to gas myself out because that's my style of training. And so for me, like hypertrophy was very beneficial because I was growing muscle, I was building size, I wasn't gaining weight for my weight class as much, and I was pushing my body to favor my style of wrestling, which was grab them, choke them, throw them down, put them in a pin, and so on. Um, and so that was big for me. There are other wrestlers who are more technical. So if you're a more technical wrestler, if you're spending your time, you're in the trenches, you're going to want to have a better endurance base because you're going to go against a guy like me. And all you got to do is just make it to round 2. And if I'm pretty tired, I can't throw my haymakers anymore. Now you have a chance to be technical and catch up on them. So as an athlete, you have to find what are their strengths, strengthen them. What are their gaps? Does improving that gap help them? And then go on from there. That's a good question. I do have one on Instagram now. In my opinion, what is the best team in the PR team series? Biased question. Obviously, I think the Missouri Thunder has great potential. It's a young team on the up and up. And the Missouri Thunder train here throughout the year. Great group of guys, great hard workers. And so, yeah, of course, it's the Missouri Thunder PBR team. I think they could be a little bit stronger, maybe work a little bit harder. But other than that, pretty good team. Great question. That was definitely not asked by somebody who's on the PBR team series, not by somebody who trains here. Let's see real quick. All right. Let me scroll back down to the live portion. Once again, guys, if you have questions, you can drop them in. That's kind of how we've been doing it this whole time. Wrapping up my programming. And then this week we asked Instagram followers some questions. We got a list of 9 decent questions. So we're going from there. So I just talked about contact sports and what's more important, hypertrophy or conditioning. And I kind of like elaborated on that. Another question is, what is the best thing to do if you cannot do cleans or snatch? It's actually a pretty common topic. A lot of people have a hard time with teaching the Olympic lift because in Olympic lifting, there's a large amount of like skill that has to be built before you can get value out of it. And I see a lot of coaches that used to. So in the 2010s teens, Olympic lifting was the gold standard. If your team wasn't Olympic lifting, you were in the dark ages. And what happened is a lot of coaches spent a lot of time teaching the skill of Olympic lifting rather than getting the desired output. What's the point of Olympic lifting? Become more powerful. The second component to that is you're also building new pathways for skill development. And so we're getting more powerful. We're building skill pathways, but a lot of athletes never really build a good skill pathway and they never lift enough weight powerfully enough to get power development. And so we saw a migration away from Olympic lifting into different styles of power training. So a tool that we use universally in our programs are trap bar jumps, which is a great way to load a weight, to jump with that weight, and to produce similar power vectors that Olympic lifting would build. Now, You're not going to get the same skill development. You're not getting the same challenge that would come from holding a weight in a disadvantaged position, but you're building power. And so, because we've seen this migration, a lot of people are no longer pro Olympic lifting. In fact, big debates constantly online. I can't believe you guys are wasting time Olympic lifting. I disagree. I think there is value in both, and we do both. And so, for example, if we want to do high power, so a power training day that's got more force, we're trap bar jumping, and we're going to do different types of trap bar jumps. We're going to focus on the eccentric phase. We'll focus on the amortization phase. We'll focus on the concentric phase. And then we'll even do some oscillatory movements where we're focusing on the stretch shortening cycle above the actual power produced. And so we can do that with the trap bar jump, but we're lacking certain vectors of explosiveness that you might get from an Olympic lift, such as more chest forward, more hip dominant explosiveness, and then that motor pathway development that comes from skill building, right? And so that's why, a guy like Patrick Mahomes, he's going to throw more than just a football because he's expanding his motor pathway development to throw. So when we want to be explosive, it's okay to expand your pathway. And then a third thing why you would want an Olympic lift is the absorption. I'm having to lift this load. This load becomes weightless as it's in the air, and then I'm having to catch it and secure it. And so if I'm a football player, I'm accelerating, I'm smashing into things. I'm a car crash, and I need to have great body autonomy of absorbing that car crash. Olympic lifting is a great way to do that. There's this weightlessness, and then I have to very casually catch it. Whereas other modalities of power development, you jump, you land, you can kind of let the weights hit the ground. There's a lot less of skill and technicality and deceleration involved. And so let's say you cannot do cleans or snatch. Then your only option is the loaded jump. I did a camp at a school one time. I went in. I wasn't gonna. It's like a 1 week camp. It's like 5 days. I didn't have time to teach a really good power clean. I didn't have time to teach a really good um, power snatch or something like that. Where we're just developing core power. And so when we were doing this camp and we wanted to work on explosiveness and building power, I just taught them the clean pull shrug, where we did basically a clean pull with a jump at the top, working on shrugging, full extension, very low skill, very high loads we were able to lift. And the kids really did seem to see a benefit, and it was implemented by the coaches for the rest of their training program. And so that's a cool way to implement this power development whenever you can't do Olympic lifting. I do recommend doing both. Our varsity football players do both. All of our college athletes do both. The people that don't do both are our younger athletes that the skill development they need is running in a straight line. So I'm not going to add this barbell complexity to it whenever they also don't have certain like pound for pound strength values. And so that's what we would do. Once again, guys, you can continue to ask questions on the live there or the live there, or I'll just go through the list of our Instagram Q&As. Oh yeah, shout out again to the Bear Post. Bear Post, cool mobility tool, utilized in our facility a lot. It helps people just kind of build, or not build, it helps people kind of mobilize in ways that other tools can't. It's attached to a rack, up down movements, and it's one of the best tools that I found for trap release and hip and ab release. Let's see here. What question am I on now? If I do this fast, we'll be done fast. How long into a training program do you take to focus on limb imbalance? So that's a good one. Limb imbalance would be like my right leg has more output than my left leg, or it could be my right limb is healthy and my left limb is not. First off, we're going to address that immediately. Some of our like track specific athletes, we're testing right and left limb power outputs on like standing jumps and dynamic jumps and so on. And so we'll easily find a deficit. And most people have a deficit. Like if you're a jumper, you're going to have one leg that hurts more and is more powerful than the other. And so on and so forth. And so we want to find those gaps. Now, I'm not going to spend all workout. Nobody needs to have an exact 1-to-1 ratio. But if you can bring those two closer together, you're more versatile. You're less likely to have a massive difference. When there's this massive difference, then you start to see like that weak limb is compensating, or this leg is overdoing. And so we want to see some kind of return. And so all we're working on is we're still doing bilateral training, but every workout, our athletes have a bilateral strength focus and a unilateral strength focus. And so the bilateral strength focus is lower volume, more intense, it's more total tons lifted. And so that's their push. And then afterwards, based on how well the bilateral training goes, we then have a unilateral push. So a lot of the times I want a certain load done. I want a certain thousands of pounds lifted over a workout. And so let's say it equals a total of 30 of their squats. So like if they can do 30 total squats this workout, we're not going to do any of their lunges. But the way that we calculated that is they'll do a set of squats and then a squat with no cap. So it's like, hey, like do as many as you can until your form breaks down. And once we see a form breakdown or an inability to do another rep, we stop. And if my goal was 30 squats that workout and they did 15, we're then going to get the rest of our lifting volume from doing single leg exercises at more reps. And so we're touching heavy bilateral. We're also touching a unilateral focus. And both of those are going to help do some limb imbalance corrections. And load is this the best way to go. So anytime you're loading, you're probably doing a limb balance improvement. And then if you have any kind of like gravity loading, so like falling, jumping, absorbing, that's another way to also train limb imbalance. But just like running high speed movements, low load, high velocity training typically doesn't touch that as well. So you're going to go in the weight room and you're going to want to hit those as hard as you can. Thank you for the questions that you guys gave this week. Really do appreciate it. Now these lives stay on my Instagram for a while so other people can read them. The questions now just help because a lot of people have been messaging me saying, dude, I missed the whole Q&A. Can I ask questions now? Of course you can ask questions whenever. You can ask questions on this video. If you're watching it at this point on the Instagram list, I just leave it up and so on. So I have another question. Number 6, I think. I'm an 18-year-old football player and I struggle putting on weight. What should I do? That's a great question. It's probably a really common question. Probably should have been the first one I did because 18-year-olds only watch the first 3 minutes of this video. They'll get bored. And so, honestly, and this is something that has never stopped being true, we work with dozens to hundreds of high school football players a year. And every single one of them is trying to gain weight. And every single one of them tells me, I eat so much. You don't understand. I eat so much. And the truth is never like that. Like every single time that we talk to them, we calculate it out. Some days they eat a lot. Some days they're eating 2,000 calories more than they need. And then some days they're eating, most days probably 1,000 to 500 less calories than they need. And so what happens is they'll go way over. They feel so full. They're satiated. The next day they're like 500 under. The next day maybe they're 1,000 under. And then the next day they eat 2,000 calories again. And then the next day they're really busy. It's 1,000 under. And so you calculate at the end of the week, how many calories did we have in excess this week? And it's like 500 to 1,000. And like the math says, a pound of muscle is going to take, nearly 3,000 to 5,000 calories to put on. And they're not touching it. It's going to take them weeks, 10 weeks, if they're only getting 500 extra calories to gain weight. And so anybody who's not gaining weight, number one, you're not eating enough. You just don't have the bricks to build this house. And everyone thinks protein, protein, protein. And I agree. Protein is the signal to turn the bricks into muscle, right? Because if we're eating a lot of calories, we're getting all these bricks dropped off at our house, our body. Your body decides, do I build the fat? Do I build the muscle? Do I repair the bone? Do I repair the connective tissue? And so if you're not doing anything to stimulate muscle growth, bricks go to fat. But if you're a teenager, so you're 18, like this person asked, bricks are going to your muscles. You have puberty on your side. If you're consuming adequate amounts of protein, so 1 gram of protein to 1 pound body weight per week or per day, bricks are going to be told to go to muscle. If you're lifting weights and playing sports, bricks are going to be told to go to muscle. And so you got all these good signals saying we need to put on muscle, we need to put on positive weight gain. But if you have those 3 signals, so protein, puberty, weight training, and then no bricks are getting dropped off, you're not getting enough bricks in the house, you still don't have a house. Like you might have the blueprints to build a bigger house. You don't have a house. And so if you're 18, you're not gaining weight, you need to find decently high protein foods that also provide the bricks. And so my recommendations, a Little Caesars pepperoni pizza, 100 plus grams of protein, right? 3,000 calories, you're getting the bricks and you're getting the protein. Little Caesars pizza, it is the dollar for dollar way to just get in there and just like save some money, get your protein. And it's easy to eat. A lot of people can eat a pizza. Another option, peanut butter sandwiches ad nauseum. Peanut butter is super high in calories because it's high in fat. Peanut butter has some protein. That's the way to go. What a lot of people do is they jump straight to protein shakes. Protein shakes don't have a ton of calories. They make you feel kind of full. And so you're missing out on those high calorie meals. And so we have a nutrition shop. We have a shake shop. We have people that have to have shakes after workouts. I'm saying not everyone needs a protein shake at the end of their workout if you're not gaining weight. That means the protein is not the problem, the calories are. Now, with us, we're just filling that protein shake with 50 grams plus of protein and Nutella and peanut butter. And so these kids will see weight gain. In our baseball program, we had a kid that couldn't gain weight, made him good shakes, gave him an education, talked to. He put on 10 pounds in a month. Went from I can't gain weight, 10 pounds heavier, and the dude got faster, was jumping higher, started smoking all these other metrics. And so that was a big one. Another question, 7, I think, because I'm trying to keep up. What are the best non-Olympic lifting exercises for track throwers? So we're getting back to Olympic lifting. Olympic lifting is like your power clean or your power snatch or something like that. The best one, so a lot of people don't understand the different movement vectors, or I guess the different phases of a movement. And so movements have 3 phases. We have the eccentric, which is the lowering phase, the amortization, which is like the isometric in between, and then the concentric, which is the exiting phase. And when an athlete is a track thrower, their predominant strength has to be in the concentric phase, maybe the isometric phase, but there's not a ton of eccentric loading. Like they're using momentum to get going, but they're not absorbing large forces, putting out large forces. They're just winding up to a big force. In retrospect, like a track athlete who's running, like when they're going really, really fast, boom, thousands of pounds of eccentric load, thousands of pounds. And so they may not be able to squat 200-300 pounds, but they can manage thousands of pounds in locomotion when they're running and doing stuff. And so they have a high need for eccentric overload. A track athlete that is a thrower does not. And so things that would benefit a track athlete would be concentric dominant lifts. And so you're talking your power cleans. We're not doing those. So trap bar jumps would be an example. We're talking barbell jumps from a box. So sitting down on a box, your shoulders, no eccentric amortization, jump. Can I move it fast? Um, a lot of chain style lifting might be beneficial because you're going down, the load is getting lighter down, so less eccentric emphasis, but we're seeing a large tighten response. And then boom, go back up. And as it gets harder, the chains are adding load, and so you have to push through the chains. So there's a huge benefit to that. But finding a way to concentrically challenge the athlete more than eccentrically. And so, as somebody who loves the deep, heavy squat, doing a back squat in certain phases is good for them, but when we're in season prep, the lowering of the back squat matters way less than the upward portion. And so pause squats, deadlifts are huge. I would deadlift a thrower like crazy, upper body specific lifting as well. So push press jerks, which just vary from this position. These are all things you want to do that are non-Olympic lifting, with the emphasis being velocity at load. So don't just lift heavy things slow, lift heavy things as fast as possible. I'm almost done. I think I have 2. Realistically, how often do your athletes, so I guess my athletes, get hurt? Really not that much. Something that we've noticed over the years is teams that have a lot of kids come to our program in the preseason have lower markers of like traumatic injuries. And so non-contacts, overuse injuries. Like for example, we had a school where like the year prior, like 5 or 6 girls had ACL injuries on a varsity team. And the like 4 or 5 starters that did not have ACL injuries or like some kind of tear that required surgery were our girls. And so either A, we have the lucky bunch, or B, we have the bunch that spent time in the off season and preseason doing things that built resilience. And then when they're in the season and fatigue is extremely high, we are that parachute that has helped them not have this large injury. And we're not talking non-contacts. Like if somebody's running down the field, take a football helmet to the kneecap, you could survive that. Being resilient helps, but a football helmet to the kneecap is pretty tough to come back from. Our athletes in our facility, we've only had a handful of people get hurt in our facility, and it's typically somebody not paying attention and they're talking to their friend and they are doing like a skip or an easy warm-up drill and they land on their foot funny, or they're talking to somebody and they land a little funny. One time we had somebody drop a weight on their foot. And so our injuries are unfortunately in-house, silly little things where like people aren't paying attention and they're talking. It's just like, oh, I rolled my ankle, done. But when it comes to our athletes outside of our building getting hurt, very low rates. We get a lot of people who go from constantly hurting their ankles. And a lot of that is because our first 15 minutes are proprioceptive, connective tissue based, a lot of what we would call like fascially dominant training. And so not high load, but high stretch and reflex. And so we're training the system and we're just poking at things that are weaknesses at a low enough intensity to where every single day we touch it 15 minutes and they build resilience to these common problems. And so we're blessed to have a lot of healthy kiddos. I wish I could get more people in here to do resilience so that we're seeing less kids in the area get hurt. But as somebody who destroyed his shoulder and had to have surgery, you don't know something's a problem sometimes until the brakes fall off. I'm going to do my last one. I don't have any new questions on Instagram. So I'm going to do my last one. And then once again, if you guys ever have questions, please go just post them in the comments, slide up on our stories. I post the question box now just to get something. I like doing these. The bear posts hopefully is getting some people to check out their products because of this. Really good products. We have several on several racks, and people show up, oh, my shoulders, my ab, my hips. We go to it and you can self-treat this issue and you're like, oh my gosh, that's where it is. And you do some tack and floss. It's great. So if you haven't heard the bear post, at least go type in bear post and see what pops up. Really good products, really valuable in my opinion. So I have several, and I guess that's now why we teamed up. Last question. Should runners do plyometrics and weight training in the off season for long distance running? Will it make you faster and injury bulletproof? To be the stickler, there's no such thing that makes you bulletproof. There's definitely injury resilience. Like I am less likely to get hurt. So like the last question talking about how often do people get hurt? And I talked about how we have that team where like half the starting varsity was out with some kind of surgery needing tear. And then the half that came here survived the season and had a great season. And so we built some resilience in those kiddos in their preseason. And so, yes, should runners do it? I 100% agree that runners should do plyos and weight training because long distance running has the highest rate of injury per time. So a lot of people think football is going to be the most dangerous sport. People say cheerleading is the most dangerous sport. Running has the highest rate of injury per time spent in sport. And so that's something you got to be careful about, is that it's just this repetitive, like right, left, right, left. And so you're getting this wear and tear, this high wear and tear that leads to injury. And the resilience that comes from that is building tendons and ligaments that can contract and move fast under load, and then building a high force potential. And in fact, the more force you can generate per foot strike, the faster you're going to be. When I'm putting down 200 pounds of force over 100 pounds of force, I'm going to have more movement at lower efforts. And so if I put down 100 pounds of force with 200 pounds potential, I'm going to have more output. I'm going to run at a lower cost. I'm going to move faster if I need to. But if I'm at 100 pounds of force, I'm maxing myself out to do 100 pounds of force. And so that's how we should think of runner training, is like generating more force per foot strike, faster runners. Resilience comes from building tendon, ligament, muscular strength. And then plyometrics helps with the speed of contraction, which is also something that we want our runners to have, because if they're fatigued, we don't want low contraction rates. We don't want their body being more elastic in a non-pliable way. So that's it, guys. I had good questions beforehand. I had some questions during, and then this is going to be up because I have found that this timeline does not fit everyone's schedule, but it fits mine. It's my last 30 minutes of Friday administrative work, and I'd rather talk about sports than crank away at the computer all day. Appreciate you guys. I appreciate the bear post. Go check them out. Go check the bear post out. See their products. They have some valuable products, some really good stuff. I use it regularly. My athletes use it regularly. They support a lot of our college kids. And so just go check them out, guys. Drop comments and questions in this one. If you still have them, you're like, I missed it. Drop your questions here. Slide up on our stories and drop your questions, or just find our weekly poll question thing and drop them there. And I appreciate the 9 of you that gave me questions for this week. I will see you guys next time in video. And I had to do that because, once again, guys, this is on Instagram as well. So adios, amigos.